What can we do for you today?
So I'm just calling for a little bit of advice. I'm in my mid-20s, and I grew up in a very, very fundamental Pentecostal religion. So, I mean, not the snake handling, but speaking in tongues, jumping up and down. You know, don't cut your hair, modest clothing, all that. And I think what really helped was, you know, I went to college and I got my teaching degree, and I really was, you know, taught to think critically, and I started reading my Bible and was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
And, you know, I started talking to my parents, you know, saying how I don't understand how awful the Bible is. And, you know, they didn't have any answers for me, just have faith. You know, we don't have the answers, but, you know, we just believe in God. And, you know, that just, you know, isn't enough for me. And they wanted me to talk to my pastor. So I started talking to different pastors, and one of the pastors said the most ridiculous thing, that, well, God judges today's world harsher than yesterday's world because, you know, God doesn't like slavery now, but he was okay with it then. Yeah. I was like, where do you even get that, you know, understanding from? You just came up with that.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very frustrating. And I was at church, I guess, last week, and they were telling us the story of the founder of the church the denomination of Pentecostal, which is the UPCI church. And his name was Howard Goss. I don't know. He lived in the 1800s or something. And he apparently didn't believe in God until he was kicked in the head by a horse, and then he heard God.
Okay.
Which I'm pretty sure was probably just brain damage. But
probably.
Okay, yeah. God. And everybody else, they're just like, oh, oohing and ahhing, like, yeah, sometimes it takes a kick in the head by a horse for God to get through. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. But
it's like the psychedelic guy who sometimes you have to be on psychedelic drugs to see the other dimensions. I don't know if you heard the caller we had earlier. That reminded me of the kick in the head.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. No, but they just take it. The whole congregation just nod in their head. Amen, brother, sister. You know, yeah, God gets through to you in mysterious ways. Sometimes, you know, you have to have brain injury to get God through. I don't know. But the point of my call is, you know, I have nieces and I have nephews, and I'm terrified if I tell them that I'm an atheist, that I won't be able to see them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
I just...
Yeah. So I guess
I just don't know what to do. Like, I hate lying, but...
Yeah. So you said you were in church and you've been talking to pastors at your family's request. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what would happen if you just said, you know what, I don't want to talk to the pastors anymore, and you just stopped going to church?
Well, the one time I got really close to coming out, my mom was like, do you even believe in Jesus? And I was like, I don't know. And this was probably a couple of years ago. And she ended up throwing up. She had like anxiety attack. It was awful.
Yeah.
And I just...
Yeah. And I understand, you know, your concern for your mother and everything, but understand that you can't control how somebody else reacts. So the question here is, if you did come out as an atheist to your family, you already said that there could be some pretty severe consequences And so the question is, can you live with those consequences? And if not, what are the possibilities for coming up with, I guess, some way that you can kind of be true to yourself and not provoke that kind of response from your family? Is there some lesser thing where you just basically take a step back from their religion?
I mean, I mean, what I've done already is taking a step back. Even going to church once or twice a month is a step back, you know? And like the other day, I don't know, my family bought a house and about a year ago. And on the anniversary of them buying a house, there was a rainbow. And, you know, that was God's sign.
It's a sign, yep.
You know, just letting my parents know that, you know, he's there for them. I don't know. And they look at me and they're like, you know, I know you don't believe that, but
yeah.
And I didn't say anything. So, I mean, they know that I'm not right there with them.
Yeah.
And I guess that's as good as it's going to get for right now. But, you know, even with that, it's like, you know, constantly, you know, you really should try to pray through to the Holy Ghost again. And I mean, I haven't spoken in tongues in years. I hate to even admit that I've done that.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I mean, no need to be embarrassed. Some of the best people I know have spoken in tongues. So one of the guys that we've had as a guest, I believe he's been a guest host here, Jerry DeWitt.
Jerry, yeah.
He was a Pentecostal minister, and he's actually explained that this speaking in tongues thing is kind of a learned skill, you know, because you're like right there. There's all this social pressure to do it,
and everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, and people basically learn how to do it by watching other people do it.
Oh yeah, I could do it on
cue. Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you need to.
On cue, it's so easy.
Kera, you mentioned that your parents kind of already know. You just don't make an issue out of it. But what would cause? You said you were afraid that you might not be able to see your niece and nephew. What would cause them to decide to keep you from them? I guess it's your sister or your brother?
I have, my sister's kids. And the reason I think that is when I was when I was more upfront about, like, constantly, like, every day I was, like, you know, I had questions every day, you know, this, it doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, you know, they would pull me aside and they'd be like, don't talk about this to anybody. Like, you know, they didn't want me to talk to my adult sisters about it. They didn't, you know, so I know that, I mean, I don't know, but I just have a feeling that if I did come out, that if I wanted to hang out with them, it would definitely be like probably chaperoned or something so that I wouldn't infect them.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not that they would cut off contact completely, it's just they would insist on an adult being there, or another believer being there, I should say.
Or they're just worried you're going to be talking about it a lot, and it's kind of something you have to decide for yourself. You can come out and you can still kind of just have a moratorium on talking about religion with your family. Right. You know, you're not being dishonest to just not go there. They kind of already know. They just don't want you to make a big issue out of it in front of their kids. And you know, when their kids are kids, they're kind of under their parents' control. So there's not a whole lot you can do about that. You know, if the relationship with them
I wouldn't.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't even make a big deal. I mean, a couple of years ago when I was first questioning, I did a lot, but I mean, most of the time, I don't say anything. Most of the time they bring it up to me.
Yeah.
I know you don't feel that way, Chris, you know, but
so they're kind of using this as kind of a form of psychological abuse right now. So, I mean, I guess my recommendation would be that you cut that conversation off and just tell them you're not going to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Because they're not being respectful of you and where you are. They're demanding that you respect them and their beliefs and that you make all the sacrifices, but they're not willing to meet you halfway.
And they want to be able to keep badgering you, but they don't want you to tell them what you think. So that's not fair. You can agree not to go there, but it's got to go both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I did definitely. I mean, I. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I would actually, have a conversation with your sister. I mean, she's the parent.
Without your mom being there.
Right, without your mom being there, and say, hey, look, I understand that you're raising your kids in the church, and I would not do anything, to basically undermine the message that you're giving to your kids, and it would ultimately be up to her, and not your parents, who seem to be the ones with the vested interest in keeping you kind of in the fold. And you never know. You might find out your sister's got similar doubts.
I have talked to my sisters too. I mean, unless they're great liars, they're all pretty devout.
Yeah. Right.
I've made it known that I've had questions, so I would hope that if they did too, they would come to me, but, maybe they're scared.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is they're probably seeing what your parents are doing to you.
Yeah.
And that sort of,
yeah.
I know you probably don't want to think of your parents as abusive, but they are actually being abusive to you right now.
Yeah.
And I can hear how upset you are just talking about this. And so, I know that this is having a non-trivial effect on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just really sorry you're going through this. And
it is very frustrating.
Family's important, and you wanna keep that contact, but you also deserve to be treated well.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't deserve to be treated like this.
Thanks. I mean, it is. I mean, I have, a life outside of my family.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a teacher, and, I have all this, but it's just frustrating.
Yeah. I understand. So, we're almost we are actually out of time here. So we need to get going, but
okay.
Will you keep in touch with us and let us know how things go?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Just email you?
Yeah. Email or call back.
Yeah.
Whatever you're comfortable with. All right.
All right.
All right.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kera.